News Hausawanto, Koroi Hawkins. The minister said on the country's own newspaper was unwise and reactionary. Fiame Naomi Mustafa, now an independent MP, made the comment after early on the Maletua Ponataiba and the Samu Observer newspaper from ministerial press conferences. He also stopped his cabinet ministers from talking to the newspaper, saying it is a response to persistent, unprofessional and unethical conduct. Fiame, who is now an independent MP, says the optics for the government are not good.
We are now getting comments from outside sources condemning the action taken, so I think the external scrutiny will be there for our government, and that's not a good thing.
Fiame says there was a definite lack of transparency while the Prime Minister was in New Zealand for 2 months on medical leave. The Cook Islands Prime Minister says they have learned a lesson from the diplomatic tension with New Zealand. New Zealand has paused nearly $30 million in funding support, citing concerns that it was not consulted over the Cook Islands signing agreements with China. Addressing Parliament last week, Mark Brown said the Cook Islands must strengthen and modernize their partnership with Apitong. While we are fully committed to our relationship with New Zealand, we have learned a valuable lesson in that we've seen the risks that arise from over-reliance on any single partner for our development needs. A narrow or non-diversified development partner approach would weaken our economic resilience and have implications for our long-term ability to advance our own development goals. It reassured Parliament the government is being proactive to stabilise its strained relationship with New Zealand. A health charity is worried that a rogue fundraising event could be pocketing money in their name. Heart Kids New Zealand says organisers of the charity motorcycle ride scheduled for next March are operating in its name but haven't responded to any of its requests for information. Chief Executive David Kindia says the same event was held earlier this year and only gave the charity a small portion of the money after 6 months of pestering.
We're dependent on trust in our community. We're dependent on being able to, if you'll excuse the pun, hand on heart, say your money is coming to our kids and it's going to be used to support families who are on this traumatic journey in the community.
David Pimblett says the charity has lodged a complaint with the police. The founder of a company offering tikanga guidance on AI-generated Maori content says bias from artificial intelligence could have broad implications for this country. Hawke's Bay startup Mahi AI works alongside companies producing Te Ao Maori content. Company founder Atara Hamilton had noticed incorrect information and generic material that often misrepresented or ignored Maori perspectives being produced by AI generators such as ChatGPT. He says the company is seeing evidence of AI bias.
The significance of, the hallucinations that we're seeing could impact the country in a broad scale.
Hamilton says organizations working with Maori communities don't necessarily understand the potential risks of using AI-generated content. Australian Senator Pauline Hanson has provoked anger for wearing a burqa in Parliament after pushing for a ban on the Muslim garment. She was condemned by fellow senators, with one accusing her of blatant racism. Proceedings in the Senate were halted as she refused to remove the head covering. The Queensland anti-immigration One Nation Party senator has been trying to introduce a bill to ban full face coverings in public, a policy she has long campaigned for. It's the second time she has worn the garment in Parliament. A coronial inquest into last year's mass stabbings at Bondi Junction in Sydney has called for significant mental health reform. The ABC's Chantel Al-Quiri reports.
Joel Cauchi killed 6 people and injured another 10 during a stabbing rampage at the shopping centre in April last year. An inquest heard 5 weeks of testimony, including from family members of the victims, early this year. In today's closing submissions, counsel assisting the coroner says the current mental health system is unsuitable, with a need for better care for those with chronic mental illness, including housing options.
In world news, Sudan's top general has rejected a ceasefire proposal provided by US-led mediators, calling it the worst yet in a blow to efforts to stop a devastating war that has gripped the African country for more than 30 months. General Abdel Fattah Burhan says the proposal is unacceptable and has accused the mediators of being biased in their efforts to end the war. Sudan plunged into chaos in April 2023 when the power struggle between the military and the powerful paramilitary rapid support forces exploded into open fighting. Activists in Nigeria have written an open letter to the country's president after a resurgence in mass kidnappings of children in the north. In the latest incident, gunmen abducted children from a Catholic school in Niger State on Friday. 54 managed to escape, but 265 people, including 12 teachers, are still missing. The BBC's Miley Jones has more.
In their letter, the signatories from Nigeria, the US, New Zealand and Italy said the 2 most recent kidnappings of students underscore a, quote, terrifying trend of lawlessness and vulnerability in Nigerian schools. The group says these incidents are not isolated tragedies, but are part of a systemic failure spanning over 11 years. It accuses the Nigerian government of ignoring the crisis and calls for the rescue of the students abducted in Kebbi and Niger State. It also urges the authorities to stop negotiating with kidnappers, prosecute those responsible for past security failures, and to strengthen security across the country.
Jimmy Cliff, the Jamaican singer who, along with Bob Marley, popularized reggae, ska, and rocksteady music, has died. His wife, Latifah Chambers, has posted online that the 81-year-old had a seizure followed by pneumonia. At just 14, Jimmy Cliff became nationally famous for his song Hurricane Hati. Cliff would go on to record more than 30 albums and perform all over the world in a 6-decade career. He was best known perhaps for the singles You Can Get It If You Really Want and Many Rivers to Cross, as well as for his covers of Johnny Nash's I Can See Clearly Now and Cat Stevens' Wild World. In sport, New Zealand sailor Peter Burling says the control team New Zealand wanted over him forced him out of America's Cup outfit. The Olympic gold medalist left Team New Zealand in April after 12 years with the syndicate, but until now it was unclear why. Joe Porter reports.
Peter Burling skippered Team New Zealand to 3 America's Cup wins before his abrupt departure. In June, he announced he was joining Italian team Luna Rossa for the next Cup in 2027. The 34-year-old had not given details of what led to him leaving Team New Zealand, but ahead of this week's Sail GP Grand Final in Abu Dhabi, he spoke about the breakdown of the relationship, telling Sail GP the control Team New Zealand wanted over him was crazy. He says he wasn't explicitly told not to race Sail GP, but says Team New Zealand wanted to have full control over his time for an undefined period, which created a lot of uncertainty.
Burling and the New Zealand crew sit second in the Sail GP standings behind Great Britain. Black Caps Blair Tickman doesn't plan on bowling with any less aggression when he takes on the West Indies in Test cricket. Tickman was named in his first Test squad since 2023, following player of the match performances against England in the ODI series earlier this month. He joins fellow pace bowlers Jacob Duffy and Zach Folks in the 14-strong squad for the first Test, and says all the bowlers bring their own flavour.
Everyone's got different skills, different ways to bowl, so it's a cool bowling pick to be part of, really, because everyone's stepping up at different times. So, we're just excited to take on the Test series and hopefully we can take full look at the game and go on from there.
The first Test starts next Tuesday in Christchurch. Everton enjoyed their first Premier League win at Manchester United for 12 years, despite playing nearly the entire game with 10 men after an altercation between teammates. Midfielder Idrissa Ganaye was sent off for slapping his teammate Michael Keane in the 13th minute after a misunderstanding in the Everton defence led to a heated argument between the pair. This leaves the sport from RNZ Pacific. is on our website, rnz.co.nz/Pacific.
Sounds lover, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suzuki. Coming up, UN climate talk outcomes disappointing for the Pacific.
There will be a lot more faith that's lost by a lot of people across the world.
Will South Highlands committed to repairing its relationship with Aotearoa?
We have attended every scheduled meeting. We have responded to every letter.
And we check out how Pacific teams have fared in the draw for next year's Rugby League World Cup. The United Nations Climate Conference has finished with an agreement that does not explicitly mention cutting fossil fuels, but calls to at least triple adaptation finance. One Pacific climate campaigner has called the final outcome weak. Caleb Fotherington reports.
The head of Australia Pacific at Greenpeace, Shiva Gondon, says the multilateral process is currently being attacked, which is making it hard to reach a meaningful consensus on decisions.
Credibility of COP is dropping somewhat, but it can be salvaged. It can be salvaged if there's a little bit of political will that is visionary from across the world, and the Pacific has kind of shown leadership in this quite a bit in the last few COPs.
He says the outcomes of this COP and previous ones mean global temperature rise will not be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
There's parties within the system who are attacking the science and facts that show that we need to really be a lot more ambitious than we are, and if that continues, there will be a lot more faith that's lost by a lot of people across the world.
COP30 has closed without explicit mention of the fossil fuels which drive global warming. It's despite more than 80 countries pushing to advance previous commitments to transition away from oil, gas, and coal.
Overall, I think it was extremely weak. You had zero progress around climate finance and the means of implementation, and hoping the next few months there will be a little bit of a pathway with those open door opportunities in addressing the root cause of the climate crisis, which is the fossil fuel industry.
COP31 will take place in Turkey next year, and Australia will be president of negotiations, which means the country will be in charge of the draft documents. A pre-COP will also be hosted in the Pacific. Mr. Gondon hopes the plan will become more clear in the next few months.
This is a very complicated situation where you've got a negotiation president that is actually not a host of the presidency, as well as the COP president across the whole year. So all of that stuff still needs to be clear and specified.
He says 3 different groupings will need to work together: Turkey, Australia, and the Pacific.
A jury has found a